Hi, everyone. We'll just wait a few moments to give everyone a chance to join in. A few more seconds. Okay. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. I hope you've enjoyed the mini virtual conference talk so far. This is the last one for this evening. Thank you, Karina, for helping with the ASL interpretations. My name is Julia Feliz Brueck. I'm the founder of Sanctuary Publishers and community-focused websites like veganismofcolor.com, consistentantioppression.com, and neuroableism.com. I am an ADHD person with inattentive type, which means my brain finds it difficult to focus and stay on topic, especially on demand like right now. Because of this, I'm noticeably reading what I have to say in order to anchor my brain and make sure that I deliver the information as I intended to when I wrote this. My activism has transformed itself in many ways in the last close to 12 years since I became vegan. And this has led me to form a commitment to build bridges between communities and to raise the voices of all marginalized groups. This means that I'm committed to something I call consistent anti-oppression in an effort to ensure that I work my hardest to use my privileges and make sure that I do not add to anybody else's oppression, human and non-human. While my vegan activism is centered on non-human animals, it is a veganism that is consistent and aware that we cannot achieve liberation for non-humans without addressing root issues, finding solutions, and solving pressing issues that mean non-humans are often not factored into social justice movements. Consistent anti-oppression also means that I follow a veganism that must not tolerate or add to the oppression of any other group in our fight to raise the voices of non-human animals. This, I know, is especially relevant to vegans of color because our experiences as vegans of color are very different to white-centered veganism. We have intersecting identities and oppressions that we face while taking a stance to include non-human animals in our oppression activism. However, speaking between us, people of color, I want to briefly remind ourselves that even we, vegans of color, are not free from having a hand in the oppression of others. And this is something that we must be aware of and remember to work on as well. I'm a brown-skinned African indigenous Puerto Rican, but I have lighter skin privileges. I must work against my internalized anti-Blackness without question and my internalized anti-indigeneity as well. We all have a duty to understand things like colorism and anti-Blackness, for example. Apart from being a person of color, I am non-binary. As a gender-vague person that reads as their assigned gender at birth, I have privileges over non-passing trans people, and especially over Black trans people of marginalized genders, which are murdered at disproportionate rates simply for trying to live as their authentic selves in a world that refuses to respect them. Black trans lives matter, and those with privileges must work against homophobia and transphobia in their communities too. I'm also neurodivergent, but because I have inattentive type ADHD, people don't usually realize that this often translates to silence as I retreat to my hyperactive mind. So I actually have privileges over other neurodivergent people that can't blend in as easily or even at all. I am still affected by neuroableism, even in spaces of color. It's important that you genuinely take the time to understand that neuroableism and ableism must be addressed and recognized as oppressive despite its wide acceptance. Lastly, I am human, so I have privileges over non-human, whose murders are justified by the trillions each and every year. I have a duty to ensure that I never stop doing what I can for non-human animals with my human privilege. For me, this started with my veganism, which is the most basic action we can take with our choices, and has now evolved into finding ways to build bridges between veganism and other social justice movements so that we may all get on the same page. These are just a few examples of my intersecting identities, but also of my privileges and types of oppressions that we cannot tolerate. In fact, as we become more aware of other struggles, we must not tolerate any form of oppression, even if we don't understand it. Have you stopped to truly consider what this means? When I say consistent anti-oppression, I mean that I recognize these privileges and that I will never understand the experiences of of every other community, which is okay. But I need to respect those communities and recognize how society has taught us all to see them as less than, because they are different to the majority. While we're still learning and will make mistakes, it is imperative that we also do what we demand of white mainstream veganism: safety, respect, and consistent anti-oppression within our own spaces. I want to ask my own communities to stop reproducing systems of oppression that have been used against us and make sure that we take the lead and show mainstream veganism how it needs to be done consistently while engaging with one another and ensuring we work our hardest to reduce our own hands in oppression. I want to conclude the talk portion of day one of the mini virtual conference by reminding vegans of color that we all have a right to take up space. We have a right to break the mold, especially when something is not working. When it comes to reaching our own communities, we all have something to say and it matters. What we have to say matters, whether we're professional speakers, writers, or just everyday people trying to make it in the current world, while ensuring we also take a stance to speak up for those we are taught are less than us, including non-humans. Non-humans have been used as tools against us under a white supremacist-centered society that has forced hierarchies upon us often, employing non-humans to question and take away our humanity. This is an issue that mainstream veganism has yet to understand, and how it makes outreach to our own community that much more difficult by failing to be aware of things like racialized speciesism. In order to help us all move forward as a community is why this mini conference exists, and why I have put out community book projects like Veganism in an Oppressive World and Veganism of Color, Decentering Whiteness and Human and Non-Human Liberation, which was published in early 2019. Both books center VoC voices from around the world. And you can also find more resources by VoC for POC on veganismofcolor.com. You can also learn about things like neuroableism and how to understand neurodivergent people better via neuroableism.com. Another resource is consistentantioppression.com, which features the Vegan Bill of Consistent Anti-Oppression. And this bill outlines what mainstream veganism needs to address in order to truly center and become efficient activists for non-human animals. Lastly, there's newprideflag.com, which hosts the trans queer POC New Pride Flag, which centers the most marginalized in the LGBTQIA+ movement, Black and brown trans women and other people of marginalized genders, while also acknowledging the history of Pride and attempting to create acceptance by raising visibility of our communities. We need centering. We do not need more empty gestures or cosmetic changes that don't actually address root issues or focus on those with the least privileges in our fight for justice. Again, when something's not working, we have a right to say no. We have a right to demand those around us do better. And we have a right to demand that those outside our communities understand that veganism affects us all differently due to our histories, especially with colonialism. Time is running out. Our world is literally on fire. So this conference is actually a way for us to be able to communicate with one another and learn from each other as we try to figure out how to move forward in addressing social justice that includes non-human animals. I'm committed to continue to work towards the creation of resources to help us move forward, And I really do hope that you found these mini talks, which were actually done short on purpose to ensure we are inclusive of neurodivergent people, helpful and validating. There are many of us, and together we are a community that has the power to help our own understand the interconnections that bind our liberation to non-humans so that we can chip away at a large chain that keeps us bound under supremacist ideologies. We also have the power to show mainstream veganism how to finally get it right. VoC Mini Conference 2020. I hope you find this all valuable, and if you'd like to take part in the next round, bring it. Let's do this, and let's keep doing this. You get in touch with me through Sanctuary Publishers via sanctuarypublishers.com. And thank you again for being here. I hope that you'll join us for the live panel tomorrow night at 7 p.m. EST. I'll be hosting live from New York. And this will be a live panel discussion with everyone that presented a talk. So this is your chance to ask questions and participate in a virtual but live Q&A. And the live session will conclude the VoC Mini Virtual Conference of 2019. So see you then.